Okay, this is going to be a lot of fun. I really like it when somebody learns a little bit about their unique bio-individuality and how their body is operating and can understand, oh wow, that's why that diet that my friend lost weight was miserable for me. That's why I gained 30 pounds on the same one that made her lose so much weight. So I really like when people can understand those things and then adapt and correct whatever is going wrong so they can succeed on that diet, or create a diet that's going to be appropriate for where their body chemistry is. That allows them to work with their body instead of against it. So in this video, I'm going to rip through 8 really popular diets and help you understand what people do these diets work for and which people are going to fail miserably on each diet. And that way you can figure out what's going to work best for you. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So I've been able to help clients lose more than 230 pounds in a year by just going with the principle of there is no diet that is right for every person, because we all process foods differently. As a human, we should have the ability to burn both glucose and fat for fuel, but some people are predisposed to have their bodies seem to be burning more glucose than fat, and some people burn fat better than glucose. Like a type 2 diabetic is not processing glucose correctly, so you put them on some kind of low-fat, high-carb diet and you're going to magnify the problem that their body is already having. So we're going to jump through these diets and help you understand who they're appropriate for and who they're not going to work for. So let's start with number 1, being a low-fat diet. I view this as the dumbest diet of all diets. And you know, this really got popular in the 80s when we were wearing parachute pants and we carried a boombox around on our shoulders, and that should have given us a clue that whatever we were doing wasn't right. Just the fact that Molly Ringwald got so popular should have helped us understand, oh, whatever diet we're doing is probably not appropriate. So with a low-fat diet, you're removing the fat, and a person could succeed with this if they didn't have the ability to digest fats. So what happens when we eat food is our stomach makes hydrochloric acid, and that helps us break down our protein and start to acidify that food. And then when that acidified product leaves the stomach and goes into the duodenum, which is the first 10 inches of the small intestine, that's when the gallbladder squirts alkaline bile down onto that acidic product. And when these two products meet of opposite pHs, it creates a sizzle. And this sizzle really helps us bust that food apart and pull all the nutrients out of that food. And that alkaline bile helps us emulsify or break down our dietary fats. So the problem is it's really common for someone not to be making enough stomach acid and not be able to break those proteins down correctly. And it's really common for someone's bile to become too thick and sticky to flow correctly. Now that bile isn't coming down and helping us emulsify those dietary fats. So someone could go on a low-fat diet, and if their body wasn't able to process those fats, the fats that they were consuming would have become a burden to the body. Those fats, when they can't be broken down correctly, they become rancid and toxic, and the body's like, oh, what do I got to do with all these undigested fats? Oh, well, I'll shove them in fat cells for safekeeping. And then our fat cells expand, and so do our pants. So if this particular person goes on a low-fat diet and they remove a lot of their dietary fats, they're removing a burden that the body was having trouble with. So they may be able to lose some weight in that scenario. The problem with these low-fat diets is, number 1, is that when you lower fats, you need to increase proteins and carbohydrates. And when someone eats too many carbohydrates, those carbohydrates will raise insulin levels, and then insulin levels will stay too high for too long, and that insulin being high restricts our body's ability to access stored fat and burn it for fuel. So in the long run, this diet really is just about the worst diet that you can try, because you're putting your body in a position where it can't burn stored fat for fuel. So for this diet to work for someone, they really need to be processing carbohydrates really efficiently. So they maybe only need to use a very small amount of insulin to process a lot of carbohydrates. And if they can do that, that insulin will still stay in a low enough level to allow their body to access stored fat for fuel. But here's the other problem with a low-fat diet. The body needs dietary fats for a whole lot of functions. And when there's not enough dietary fats coming in, the body will hold on to stored fat like it's money in the bank. It's like, oh, I need those fats to help my body function the way that it needs to function. So if there's not any fats coming in, I'll just hold on to what I have so that I don't run out. So we really want to give our body the dietary fats that it needs so it's willing to let go of stored fat. And I don't feel like I need to beat this one into the ground too much, because any diet book that's been written in the past 20 years helps us understand why a low-fat diet is not appropriate. So just know that this is really not the route that you want to go. Diet number 2 is a calorie restriction diet. I'm going to go on a really low-calorie diet. And this is probably the most popular diet to lose weight worldwide due to horrible advice. So this is a diet that can be really great if you have really bad goals. If your only goal is to lose weight on the scale and you have no concern for long-term weight loss or long-term health, then calorie restriction is the route for you. So what happens when you're trying to follow this horrible advice of you want to burn more calories than you consume? What happens is you're putting your body into a situation where it doesn't have the resources it needs to function correctly. Now, the first thing you have to understand is that for a person to be able to lose weight at all, they need to be able to access stored fat for fuel. And a lot of people that are just counting the calories are not counting what the actual food is that's going into the system. It doesn't matter the number of calories, it matters what that food is going to tell your body to do with that food. So if you're eating high carbohydrate, low calorie foods, you're still going to raise insulin to a level to where the insulin is going to tell the body to not only not burn stored fat, it's going to tell the body to store more fat. And then when it doesn't have a backup fuel source, because insulin is too high to access that stored fat and use that backup fuel source, the backup fuel source is to break down your own tissues and muscles and turn that into fuel. Well, now you've lowered your metabolism so that when you do decide that, hey, I need to eat more than just 4 bowls of cabbage soup per day, I'm going to eat some real food, then you really start to pack on any weight that you have lost. So the person might lose weight on the scale, but they still feel just as mushy as they did before they started the diet. And that's because the weight that they're losing is muscle, tissue, bones, and even organs. When the body isn't bringing in enough protein, it's really common for the body to break down lung tissue and turn that into protein that the body can use. Well, here's the hint. You kind of need your lungs. So you really don't want to put your body in this stressful situation where it doesn't have fuel and it doesn't have a backup fuel source because you're eating in a manner that doesn't allow insulin to come down so the body can access stored fat for fuel. So when the person has low mineral levels or other resources are low, which is really common when digestion is not working correctly, when either of those sides of digestion aren't working well enough, we can't bust the food apart and pull all the minerals and nutrients out of that food. So if someone's mineral reserves are already low and then they're going to restrict the amount of food that's coming in, it's going to raise stress hormones in the body. It's going to put the body in a position where like, hey, I'm kind of in an emergency here. I'm going to raise these stress hormones that will allow me to function and get through the day, but those stress hormones can also tell the body to store more as fat and break down tissue to use that as fuel. The other problem with stress hormones going high is that high stress hormones like estrogen can really thicken up the bile so that it won't flow correctly. Now we've removed the ability to process those dietary fats the way that they should be, and now those dietary fats are going to go rancid and toxic, and the body's going to have to store them in fat cells and make us gain weight. So it's really not a great idea to try and lose weight by stressing the body out as maximum as we can. We really want to work with the body instead of against it. When you really want to freak somebody out these days, you just mention osteoporosis. And osteoporosis is not a situation where the body's attacking its own bones. The body needs resources because not enough are coming in, or because the person can't digest their food correctly to access the nutrients in that food. And the body is digging into its own tissues and bones for those nutrients. So you really want to eat in a way that allows your body to rebuild itself, not shop at your own 7-Eleven and break down everything in your body to get the body what it needs to function. Okay, stupid diet number 3 is juicing. And not all the diets are stupid in my opinion, but this kind of falls into that category. But the reason that this can be successful for some people is because if they don't have enough digestive capacity to break their food down, then juicing will break it down for them. It puts it in this liquid state where those nutrients can go right into the body. They don't need to be broken down. They just go right in and the person's like, oh man, I'm getting some nutrients. I feel great. So a person could benefit if they have digestive malfunctions. The problem is when you juice something like a fruit, you're taking all the fiber out of that. Well, the fiber is the brakes that keep the sugars from hitting the bloodstream so fast and so hard. When sugars go in a liquid state, they spike insulin even higher. So if you're drinking this delicious fruit that was juiced, you're basically like eating 3 or 4 candy bars at a time. So you might do well by giving your body some nutrients it couldn't access before, but the sugars going in without any breaks is going to raise insulin for most people or eventually create some trouble. And with most juicing diets, you're not really getting the protein that the body needs, which is going to result in the body breaking itself down to access those proteins. So the other problem is that juicing doesn't do anything to fix digestive malfunctions. So the person may feel better when they start doing it, but they really need to fix digestion, or as soon as they start eating food again, they're going to gain all that weight back. Number 4 is a low-carb diet. And this can be very effective for weight loss because it's helping the person keep that insulin down so that the body can access stored fat and burn it for fuel. That's a great situation to be in. The problem is the amount of carbs and some other factors will vary greatly from person to person depending on what's going on with their body chemistry. So again, if a person is going to try and lower their carbohydrate intake, they're going to have to increase protein and fat intake. So if they don't have enough stomach acid to break those proteins down, that's going to be a problem for them. If they don't have enough bile flow to process those dietary fats, that's going to be a big problem for them. Not only are those undigested foods going to become a burden to the body that the body has to figure out what to do with, and it's going to shove a lot of it in fat cells, but beyond that, the person's not going to get the fuel they need to function as a human being. So they can't process proteins or fats correctly, but they're going to go on a low-carb diet and remove all their carbohydrates. They just removed the only fuel source that was working for their body. So they're going to kind of be miserable. They're going to have intense, crazy cravings, and their emotional state is not going to be so solid. So this can even magnify greater if someone has really low mineral levels. So you can just look at your blood pressure at least 2 hours after a meal, but not first thing in the morning. It shouldn't be fasted. It should be after a meal. And if that systolic number, which is the top number, if that's lower than 112, that's a really strong sign that a person doesn't have enough minerals in the system. So someone with really low blood pressure goes on a low-carb diet and it can end up lowering that blood pressure even more, which can create a lot of symptoms. And a big problem with this is that when insulin is very low, a lot of people will pee out more minerals. So if minerals are already low and then a person lowers their carbs really low, it can make them pee out the small amount of minerals that they have that can result in things like cravings and depression and dizzy spells and a lot of other mental and emotional issues. The other problem with a lot of low-carb diets is that there's a lot of low-carb junk foods out there. And people think, oh, as long as I'm keeping my carbs low, I can eat all of this non-food and it's going to be great. But the reality is that a lot of this processed junk is just not what the body is looking for. The body doesn't know what to do with all these synthetic ingredients, and a lot of it can end up getting stored in fat cells. So when we're eating a low-carb diet, we really want to try and lean more towards real food every time we can. But the main thing with a low-carb diet is that you want to make sure that digestion is working correctly and you want to make sure that there's enough minerals in the system. So you can check out our video on how to boost mineral levels if you looked at your blood pressure and it really was low. And my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, will walk you through how to figure out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly, and if so, what steps you can take to correct those. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can get the whole thing totally for free. And chapters 3 and 4 will help you figure out which aspects of digestion need help so that you can succeed on a low-carb diet. Number 5 is a vegan or a vegetarian diet. And a lot of people who first go vegan or they remove meat will feel a whole lot better. And the reason that is because they didn't have the digestive capacity to break that meat down. Well, if you put a trash can full of carrots and lettuce and you put another trash can full of meat and you stuck them outside for a week and then went back and stuck your head in there, which one's going to be worse? It's going to be the meat. So when someone doesn't have the ability to digest correctly, meat is going to create a lot more toxins than undigested vegetables will. Vegetables are also a little easier to break down, especially if someone isn't making enough stomach acid, which is extremely common. So when these people stop eating meat, they feel great because they removed this burden from the body that the body didn't have the ability to break down. The thing is, for a while, the person will have a reserve of all these nutrients that the body really needs to function correctly. And the problem is the body can only access these nutrients from animal sources. So now the body is not dealing with this burden of trying to break down this meat it couldn't break down, but it still has all these reserves of all these nutrient cofactors that the body really needs to function. So everything goes really great. The problem is, over weeks or months, the person will run out of those nutrient reserves, and now the body doesn't have access because there's no animal proteins coming in. So guess what? You become the animal protein that your body is eating. If there's not enough of these nutrients coming in, then the body's going to break down your tissues, muscles, organs, and bones to access those nutrients. And I don't want you to think that you can get these nutrients by eating some tofu. It doesn't happen that way. The nutrients have to come from animal sources. So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian for religious or ethical beliefs, then I think that you should continue to do that, because not doing that is going to stress you out and create all these other problems inside the body. But if you're eating vegan or vegetarian because you think it's the healthiest thing, it's a mistake. What we like to see people do is fix their digestion so that they can break down that meat correctly and then eat quality meats that are raised the right way and that are not filled with all these toxins and pharmaceutical situations. Another big problem with vegan and vegetarian diets is that they're eating all of these fake protein sources because they think that as long as it's vegan, then it's healthy, and that's really not the reality. A lot of these fake foods are really problematic. The body doesn't know what to do with them because they're not food. A lot of these things are soy-based, which is very estrogenic, and raising estrogen levels can thicken up our bile, so digestion will no longer work correctly. So we really like to see people eat more real food sources. Now, there's a lot of newfangled type of vegetarians who are like, oh, I'm vegetarian, but I eat fish or I eat eggs. They put something in there that has some type of animal protein that works, and they usually do okay as long as they're getting something. But if you've jumped on the, hey, I'm gonna eat a burger that's not really a burger bandwagon, and you're eating all these Frankenfood vegetarian-based burgers out there, know that it's a mistake. I mean, just read the ingredients. When you read the ingredients, you're gonna see like, oh wow, that's more close to Tupperware than it is actual food. So you really wanna put real food in your body. Diet number 6 is a paleo diet, and this, when you're really looking at the broad strokes, is probably the most appropriate diet for the widest variety of people. And the reason that is because it's really about eating real food. It's not really about these rules of, oh, if a caveman didn't eat it, then you don't eat it. Don't view it that way. Just view it as, when you look at by removing the things that they suggest that we remove, you see that you remove mostly all the processed junk and you leave yourself with real food. Real food grows out of the ground, it grows off of a tree, or it comes from an animal that was standing next to the tree. That's real food. So this is probably the closest diet to what I eat, but understand that I include other things that are appropriate for my body chemistry. I include butter and I include heavy cream, and those are dairy items that a lot of paleo people will say that's not appropriate for a paleo diet. But I'm not here just to do what all the cool kids are doing. I want to do what's appropriate for my body, and my body chemistry says that those particular types of fats are very beneficial for me and help me correct some imbalances that I seem to deal with most commonly. So when I'm putting something together for me, I don't want to follow rules. I want to work with my body instead of against it. Now, the problem with the paleo diet kind of goes back to similar concerns as a low-carb diet, because you really need to be able to digest protein and emulsify fats correctly, because when you're eating real food, you're going to eat a little bit more protein and you're going to eat some real fats. Now, paleo diet is not really a low-carb diet, but it ends up being kind of low-carb for most people because you're removing all these grains and all these processed junk that are usually the sources of a lot of our carbohydrates. Diet number 7 is a ketogenic diet. And this is really the best diet if someone needs to lose a large amount of weight. And that doesn't mean that a ketogenic diet is right for everybody, but if a person can do it the right way and their body is operating in a way that they can process a ketogenic diet, it can really help them lose a lot of weight faster and a lot easier. When you're using a ketogenic diet correctly and you can process it, you feel satiated a lot longer, and it's a lot easier to avoid things like cravings, and it allows you to eat less food because you feel satiated and energized and you're not focused on when is my next meal going to show up kind of a thing. People usually feel really good, and not only are you consuming a lot of fat, which allows your body to burn a lot of stored fat, but it also allows your body to run off of ketones, which can increase that ability to lose that stored fat. So a ketogenic diet has a lot of good sides to it. The problem is, again, a person really needs to be able to digest proteins and fats correctly in order for this diet to work correctly for them. If they try to eat a high-fat diet and they can't digest fats or their body can't process fats well, they're going to have a miserable time. They're going to feel horrible and they're going to say this is the stupidest diet they've ever seen. So we really want to make sure digestion is working correctly if you're going to try to jump into a ketogenic diet. What you really don't want to see is somebody saying, oh, I'm doing sort of a keto diet, a little bit, sort of. Like, you really don't want to do that. You want to either do a ketogenic diet or you want to don't do a ketogenic diet. If you're eating lots of carbohydrates, but then like, oh, I'm going to have this keto bar or this keto shake, or I'm going to have a keto meal on Thursday, then you're just introducing a lot more fat into a person that is not processing fats efficiently. So the high carbohydrates are blocking their body from really processing those fats efficiently, but they're still going to eat this keto bar because their friend doing keto lost weight. So this keto bar will probably make me lose weight. That's a really big mistake. If you're going to do keto, you really want to do keto. Now the problem is that staying in a good state of ketosis for too long can create some significant problems for some people. So you're going to find gurus that are going to tell you that no, keto is fine, you can do it forever and it's not going to cause any trouble. I was able to go keto for 5 years or more before it started creating trouble for me. So the length of time that a person can do that is going to depend on imbalances in their body and how their body is operating. But I like to cycle in and out of keto. So I'll do keto for a specific period of time and then I'll cycle more into a low carb or paleo type approach. I even use carnivore. We'll talk about that in a second from sometimes, but I like to cycle in and out of these things. So if you want to see if keto is appropriate for you, check out our video on who should not use a ketogenic diet to see if you're dealing with any of the imbalances or malfunctions that can make that diet problematic. And if you are, you can correct those issues and then you know what to keep an eye on so you know how long you can stay in ketosis before it might start to create some trouble for you. Number 8 is a carnivore diet, and this is a very popular diet right now, and it's popular because it can be very effective for some issues. If somebody's having food sensitivity issues, then a carnivore diet is going to remove most of those foods that can be problematic for most people. The other thing is a carnivore diet is basically a zero carb diet, so it's going to allow you to bring insulin way down and access stored fat to burn that for fuel. The thing is, if somebody's going to do a carnivore diet, they should really be including like organ meats, like liver and other organ meats, and using high quality meats so that they can really get all the nutrients that the body needs. And if someone can't digest protein correctly, man, that carnivore diet is not going to go well. You really want to be able to break down proteins in order to succeed on a carnivore diet. Now the problems are that when that insulin is going really low, remember, when insulin is low, it can cause some people to pee out more minerals. So if a person already has low minerals, then this is going to create a whole lot of trouble for them. They really want to lift those mineral levels in order to allow the body to keep enough in the system to allow the body to function correctly. So I really feel great on a carnivore diet. I enjoy a carnivore diet. I enjoy meat. I also enjoy that I don't have to make all these other foods and such, but I can only do it for a few days at a time before it can start to create trouble, just by me peeing out too many minerals and not giving my body all the nutrients that it needs. So I like to cycle carnivore a little bit. Some people do well using it much longer, but you really want to look at your body chemistry and where you are to see if it's appropriate for you. So I hope that helps you understand why there is no diet that's right for every person. You can see there's a wide variety of issues between all those diets that would really work great for some people and cause a lot of trouble for others. So I'll put the link to that book that you can get for free below, and if you hate to read, we also have a totally free digestion course that'll walk you through those same steps of figuring out your digestive malfunctions and looking to see if there's any imbalances that might restrict your ability to succeed on some of those diets. But another thing to understand is that intermittent fasting is also very popular right now and can really help some of these diets work a whole lot better. It can really speed up the process of losing fat, but if the wrong person is using intermittent fasting, it's going to create a whole lot of trouble. So what I want you to do right now is jump over and watch our video on who shouldn't use intermittent fasting to see if you might be able to add this to your repertoire of what's going on and help you lose weight even faster. Thanks for watching.